Welcome, everyone. This is the Buttercup Podcast where we talk about early childhood topics. My name is Marisa Macy, and I'm the host of the Buttercup Podcast. Today I have Dr. Tracy Spies, and she is the Fisher Family Professor in Literacy Education at the University of Wyoming. Prior to her appointment at the University of Wyoming, she was a professor of multilingual education at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and the co-director of the Gail A. Zeider Literacy Development Center. Before beginning her journey in academia, she worked as a bilingual teacher in kindergarten, second, and fourth grades. She served in administrative roles as literacy coordinator, assistant principal, and principal. She centers her work in teacher preparation and research around the question, what does meaningful access really mean? This question keeps her inquiries and educator preparation focused on creating high-quality language environments for multilingual learners and concentrated focus on multilingual learners with disabilities. She recently designed and implemented a 50-50 dual language STEAM curriculum for 4 and 5-year-olds, focused on building children's language and literacy skills in science across English and Spanish. Welcome, Dr. Spies.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to talk with you today. How did you get started in this field?
Oh, it's a long and curvy journey. I was raised with a bunch of people who were interested in business. And so my sister kind of followed that path behind my father and mother. And I didn't know any better. And I thought that that was what I was supposed to do. I was in college, not enjoying it very much. And I met my husband now at the time, and his mother worked in a school as an ESL teaching assistant. And I was struggling to work and go to school. And she said, why don't you substitute teach? Because you've got some flexibility there. But she said, don't worry, you'll hate your first day. It's going to be awful because substitute teaching is hard, especially when you haven't done it before. And I walked into a first grade classroom, and that was it. I knew that that was the profession for me. And so I immediately came home and I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I immediately changed my degree. Fortunately, I wasn't too far along and ended up finishing my degree in education that way. And so as I kind of progressed through education, I had the benefit of working at a school where there was only one bilingual classroom per grade level, and we were a very tight group. And I started as a kindergarten teacher there. And in the middle of the year, the fourth grade teacher had to leave, and I had an amazing student teacher. And so my principal asked me to move to fourth grade. And beautifully, I had had all of those kids as their kindergarten teacher. And so I could really see how our bilingual children were growing. And there was a very small group of kids who were not doing very well. And so that sparked my PhD. And what I wanted to do with my PhD was really look at what was it about kids who had had the same teachers. They had been in the same school. We were tight in terms of our curriculum. And so what was the difference between our kids who were just flying and those who were struggling? So that's how I got here.
That is awesome. I love hearing your origin story. And you focus on children who are multilingual learners and then also language and literacy. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you got started with your work in literacy?
Yeah, my work has come full circle, and I'm very excited about where I am now. And when I was doing my PhD, I was looking at what makes the difference, right? What are those variables that really impact students developing both languages and developing literacy in both languages. And so I got my PhD at Texas A&M, and at the time, my advisor was really looking at students long term. And so my dissertation was really looking at the development of language and literacy and its impact on reading comprehension within the language, but also across English and Spanish. And from that work came the importance of oral language and language comprehension. And so when I left A&M, I thought, okay, I'm going to work on designing interventions that really focus on developing that oral language early and throughout students' academic career, because oral language doesn't go away. And so so I got my doc and stayed in the school for another year, and then knew I was ready to go and went to Las Vegas to start my career in academia. And Las Vegas had a very high need for teachers. They had a very high need for teachers who were prepared to create language environments. And so my work shifted from really that curriculum design to how do we prepare teachers to just really create these high quality language environments. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And just before, oh, I don't remember now. It's been a couple of years before I left UNLV. I took a sabbatical and I studied teachers' decision making in special education teachers' decision making and how they work with kids with disabilities. And one of the things that came back full circle was oral language, and noticing that teachers were doing really well at teaching kids how to decode, and where they really were struggling and wanting some additional support was really what it looks like to build that language and to kind of immerse kids in the language, particularly the academic language. And so what I love now is at the University of Wyoming is really looking at that role of language in literacy from an intervention type perspective. So you can see now I'm like, it's all coming back to what I did back in 2011.
Very cool. And I'm so happy and excited that you're here with us in Wyoming.
I'm very
Yay!
excited to be here. So,
Welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Well, what are some things that early childhood professionals could do for children who are developing their language and early literacy skills? Do you have any advice for professionals?
yeah. Um, my experience has been is we kind of get in a hurry to develop those decoding skills. And I'm not saying we don't need to develop decoding skills, but we have to recognize how they go hand in hand. Particularly for our multilingual learners, is they develop decoding skills really, really quickly, right alongside their native English speaking peers. And so, but what happens is there's a drop off when that academic text becomes more abstract. So when we start thinking about second and third graders, when the text that they're decoding doesn't match their oral language. And so really thinking about, I've got to just immerse my kids in language, and I've got to make sure that they have so many language opportunities and they hear really strong language and they get opportunities to talk and to play and to really, someone sitting down beside them, really talking to them while they're playing and encouraging them to interact with one another. That is my biggest takeaway, is just don't be in a hurry to develop those decoding skills where we're isolating. decoding versus language, right? Is really put those together. And early childhood teachers are great at that. And so I think really thinking about how they can share their practice at those higher levels with those elementary teachers who are so, um, where they may have pressure for standardized testing, and is really thinking about, okay, how much language do my kids hear? How much language do my kids have the opportunity to speak? And being really transparent about words. Talk about words. Talk about how they're put together. Talk about how we take them apart. Talk about how sounds across languages are different. There's just so much language that's so critical for kids.
Yes. Yes. Uh, I had Matt De La Pena, a children's book author, on the podcast. He came to our university and spoke with student teachers and uh, students in our college program, education program. And one of the things that he was talking about was um, how he reads with his child at home, and that's his favorite time of the day. And he was talking about how uh, a lot of parents don't realize literacy is important and reading is important, but that bond that happens when a parent or a familiar caregiver is engaging with books, but also like what you're saying, just talking and noticing things and using language and children's curiosity and following their lead. And it's a cognitive skill that they're developing when they're learning to decode and learning about language and literacy, but it's also connected with social emotional development and creating these opportunities for kids to um, initiate and maintain interactions with familiar caregivers and adults in their life, but also peers. And that's one way we can promote early and emergent literacy, is making it fun. And
Really.
yeah, that's great. Do you have any advice for parents who you shared with professionals, but is there anything parents can do?
Yes. And I think we need educators and parents working together on this one, is really dispelling the myth that exposure to two languages will confuse young children. Young children are brilliant, right? Children are so incredibly flexible. It's the adults that get in the way, right? And so, sometimes I've heard teachers tell parents, only speak English to your kids at home. When we think about what kids are missing out on, the connection that they have to their language, because language is part of culture, right? It's part of who they are. And sometimes our parents, they want their kids to do well in school. And so they ask teachers, what do I do? And then only speak English. And it's really prevalent in kids that have disabilities, right? Is, oh, a kiddo with a disability really needs to only hear one language. So young children are not confused by hearing two languages, right? It's just creating, they have a single linguistic repertoire, right? It's just giving them, it's creating their language system. I think the other thing, when we talk about, encouraging parents to continue that native language, if they don't, kiddos will be disconnected from their family that only speak the native language, right? And like, that's heartbreaking to me, to think about a kid who cannot speak to their grandparents. We don't want that to happen. And we want to make sure, like, the example that I give my students is, when, especially if the parent isn't particularly proficient in English, is the level and their comfortability and the excitement that they show for talk and language goes down. But the way a parent can speak to their child in the native language, right? That cognitive thinking goes up, because they can speak to them um, in more complex ways. And so there's just so much that's lost when we say only speak English at home. And then you talked about book reading, right? And spending time in books. I have a colleague who told me a story, and she is okay with me telling this story. She is a well accomplished PhD. Spanish is her native language. Um, Her parents didn't read to her, they told stories. And what their bedtime routine was telling stories. That's what their family did. And the language, again, that comes with that. And so I don't think we want to just pigeonhole parents into, okay, you have to read with your kids at night. It's about that spending time together and that exposure. And so she just has this wonderful repertoires of stories that she told with her parents that didn't involve a book. And so, because culturally, that's what her family did. And she's amazing and has had a wonderful, amazing career. And so I think that there's other ways, right? There's other ways for parents to be involved than just requiring to only speak English at home, and also that it has to be book reading. So.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Spies. I think that is such an important message for parents, how language is part of our family, it's part of our culture, it's part of our traditions and routines, and we want to be able to embrace our home language. And I grew up speaking Italian at home, and my mom was new to America, and she didn't learn to speak English until she was an adult. And so at home, we spoke Italian. And um, uh, I'm the oldest of three children, I have two younger brothers. And one of the things that happened was one of my brothers um, started stuttering and had difficulty with fluency. And so my parents were worried, and this was back in the early 70s, and they took him to a clinic, a hospital setting. He was evaluated, and that was the exact advice that the professionals back then, I think that's maybe what they thought back then, I don't know, but they said, uh, he's confused, and we want you to only speak English at home. and and so it was like, oh my gosh, that made my parents feel bad. Like maybe they caused him to have the fluency disorder. And so, and then, to take away the home language like that. But that was a common perception back then. Maybe people didn't know better then. But so thank you for dispelling that myth that no, you don't have to just focus on one language. Children's home language is so important, and being able to nurture children and love them and to create opportunities around language is going to support their development. And so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to remember is that we're always learning, right? I mean, that's what we do is we learn and we study. And so I think it's really easy for me to sit here right now in 2025 and say, you know, that wasn't very good advice, but you are right. I mean, we have learned so much and still have so much to learn. But we don't want kids disconnected from their families, right? I mean, that is just we want children to be proud of who they are. We don't want children to be ashamed of the fact that they speak two languages or three languages or however many they speak, right? We want them to be really confident in who they are and proud of who they are. So it's important that everybody, right? That whole it takes a village, that everybody is on the same page and speaks the same, encourages the child in the same way, that this is part of who you are, right? this is who you are as an individual, as a dual language learner or a multilingual learner, and you should be proud of that.
Yes, yes. Well, Dr. Spies, is there any research or innovations that are happening right now in this area that you're excited about?
Yes, well, I'm excited about everything because I just love education. But
Me too.
I think particular, and this relates to children and teachers too, and it's not a new concept. It's been around since the 80s, is translanguaging. But Ofelia Garcia has come back and expanded it and really looked at it from a pedagogical perspective and what we can do. And so translanguaging acknowledges the fact that kids have one linguistic repertoire, right? And that their language is fluid and dynamic and really looks at how we can support kids in using their full linguistic repertoire. Because the question I get all the time from teachers is, I'm not bilingual. I don't speak the child's native or home language. How do I support them? And she's just given us this rich way of supporting kids and allowing how teachers can allow the use of the native language, and then how teachers, it's a, I said to someone the other day, they're like, well, I'm a monolingual. I said, well, hold on, do you know? And I gave them a list of words. And I'm like, yes. I said, you're an emerging bilingual, right? Like you are, like your language and your learning side by side. And that's a loose definition of an emerging bilingual. So I want to clarify that really, really quickly, but it's we're learning side by side, right? And so with translanguaging pedagogy, our teachers are open about, oh, I don't know that language. I don't know that word. Do you know that word? And really just being open about us all being and learning language and using language for different purposes. And I think it's really it's empowering teachers, and I think it's also empowering children because it's this collective approach to looking at, oh, okay, it's not, there's English on one side and Spanish or whatever the home language is on the other. It's a very dynamic, I tell teachers all the time, kids don't leave their language at the door when they walk into your room, right? And so it's really feeding on that. So yeah, that's the one that I'm there's a lot, but translanguaging I think has really started to empower teachers and kids.
Yes. Yes. Well, I loved hearing your story, Tracy, about how you started off as a substitute teacher. And I also started as a substitute teacher, and I really at the time didn't wasn't too happy about it because I wanted my own classroom, and I did student teaching in the middle of the year, and so in January is when I went out on the job market. Well, there's not a lot of jobs open in January, and so I thought, well, I'll just substitute, for the, short time, and then I'll get my full, I'll have my own classroom next year. Well, it didn't happen. So almost 2 years, this was in the 90s, and they had a furlough, I think you call it, when there's a lot of teachers trying to get a job. Anyway, it was very competitive market back then. So at the time I was like, man, I really wish I could have been, had my own classroom. But I learned so much during those years as a substitute teacher. And
Mhm.
one of the things that we talk about, and my students are going to be watching this when I use it in a curriculum class. And so we talk about fundamentals of early literacy, and vocabulary is one of them. And this happened to me when I was a substitute teacher. I had a long-term sub in this kindergarten classroom, and there was a child that had a birthday on one of the days that I was there, and I had gotten to know him for a little, I mean, all the children for a little while, because I was there more than just one day. And and so the mom, parents, he came to school with these cupcakes, and during lunchtime, uh, his family wanted him to give everybody a cupcake. Well, right after lunch, and they ate in the classroom. And right after lunch, the children went outside to the playground. Well, he still had some cupcakes left in the Tupperware container, and said, uh, can I go pass these out to the people in the office?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, that would be great." And so he comes back, and his Tupperware is empty, and then he goes out to the playground. Well, I went into the office to grab something for the later in the afternoon, and the office associate said, um, "Yeah, that was really interesting what happened. He came in with these cupcakes and he asked me if I wanted one. And I said, sure, I'll take one, thank you." And then he said, "Can I go give the school nurse a cupcake?" And then he went and brought the school nurse. "And can I bring the principal a cupcake?" So he went and brought the principal. And then he said, "And now I want to give a cupcake to the counselor." And she said, "Well, the counselor isn't here right now, but I can save it for you." And he said, "No, not the counselor, the chancellor. I want to give this cupcake to the chancellor." And again, she said, um, um, "The counselor is not here right now." And he said, "No, not the counselor, the chancellor. I want to give a cupcake to the person who has the important job of canceling school when it snows, the chancellor." And he was just like, "What is wrong with you, lady? Don't you know what I'm trying to say here? That person needs a cupcake." And I just thought, oh, that was many years ago, and I still can see his face when he came back to the classroom with that empty Tupperware, and how happy he was that it was his birthday, and everybody got to have a cupcake, even the person who cancels school when it snows. So you're here now in Wyoming, and it hasn't snowed yet.
Oh, it hasn't. It'll be interesting.
Soon it will. Well, maybe not.
Everybody stay home the day it does because I'm going to be on the road. So,
So, are there any things you're excited about here in Wyoming that you want to share with students?
oh, yeah, it's just so beautiful. It is so absolutely gorgeous. Um, I like to spend time outside and, um, I've been in really hot places. So I'm excited to have a little milder summers. I hear things about the winter, but I'll be honest with you, when I came out, the first time it was below 6 and I wasn't phased. It was nice. It was cold, I'm not gonna lie, but it was nice. And I'm so that's for me personally. Professionally, I'm just really excited about all of the great things that the College of Education is doing and the things that happen within the College of Education. I've had the opportunity to, it's classes haven't even started yet, but Saddle Up Week is this week, and I've enjoyed meeting the students. I just think it's a wonderful place to be. And so I like the community that I'm already kind of feeling around people. And so I learned a little bit yesterday in my orientations about some of the best places to eat. So I've got that list started. But it's the nature that is just outside your door that and it's different, right? I'm excited about being somewhere different. So,
Oh, well, I am so excited you're here, Dr. Spies, and I am thrilled for our campus, thrilled for our students, and uh, I can't wait to start collaborating with you and working with you.
yeah, it'll be
Uh,
fun.
well, what's been the highlight of your career so far?
Oh, I've when you prepped me for that question, I had to really think about it because I've had some really good ones. But I think the best one, and the one that if I get emotional, I apologize. I'm kind of emotional when it comes to education, but I was the principal of a dual language program, and I spent a lot of time having to dispel the myths of parents when, kids on the surface appeared confused, right? But we had a 50-50 program where half of the class were native English speakers and half of the class were native Spanish speakers. And our goal was, bilingualism for all. And, those kids started it with us as pre-kinders or kindergartners. And at their fifth grade graduation, they did the graduation speeches, but they did it in their second language. And so to have native English speakers providing the graduation speech in Spanish and having our native Spanish speakers providing the graduation speech in English, and no hesitation, no accent. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. And it just shows the power, right? It shows the power of the consistency of supporting kids across languages. And I think that's the one that still gives me chills because, I had been calming parents and calming parents and calming parents. And so for me to see it, right, is, I've been telling you this for 6 years. I've been promising you if you stick with it, this is what's going to happen. And there it was, right? And it just reinforced for me how incredible children are and how flexible they are and how everything is exciting to them and they're learning every moment of every day. And we have to remember that too, right? Is whatever you put in front of them, they're going to learn, right? So really thinking about what our environments are like, because they're going to pick it up and take it. So
Yes. Yes, they're going to pick it up and how powerful the environment is and our instruction and supporting all learners. And um, thank you. That's inspirational. Uh, how can Buttercup listeners follow you?
mm, so I am not particularly technologically advanced. So you can, and that's a goal of mine, but you can come find me in my office. I'm usually here, and I mean that with all sincerity. So for those of you who are students, my door is always open. I am always, I don't know if you can tell, always excited to talk about these things, brainstorm with you. But they can email me or they can come by. But no, I am not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook anymore. And I know I need to be better. I do.
Well, and you present at conferences and
I do. I present at conferences and I do try to go to a lot of practitioner focused conferences or the conferences that have a research focus and a practitioner focused. I think that's an important space for me. I need to hear from teachers. I want to hear what's happening in the classrooms, what their frustrations and successes are. So,
very cool. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Spies.
yeah,
It's been great visiting with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.